So this short video is going to talk about the Ilkley BID. It's a term that those who are involved sort of understand. A number around the town and other towns have heard of but don't necessarily understand. So we're going to do a quick introduction as to what it is, what its purposes is or are, and also one or two comments about its appropriateness. So BID stands for Business Improvement District, which is a bit of an odd word name acronym of itself. And around the country there are in the order of 330, mostly centred around retail parts of town centres. Some are centred around industrial parks and industrial units. And the basic premise is to improve the business relations for the businesses that it relates to, and predominantly, therefore, to get more shoppers to come to the town centre, which is a very laudable thing to do. And anyone who has a business associated with the town, even if they're not retailers, obviously wants your town centre to thrive. It has a knock-on effect for everyone else, and also it's beneficial for the place in which you work to be vibrant. So as a small business but not a retailer, one has absolutely nothing against seeing retailers do well. They've had a tremendously hard time during lockdown and COVID, and with rents and business rates and many other issues and online business. So it's been a hard time for many small to medium-sized retailers. So we have ultimate support for it, and we as a business we utilised over 85% of the businesses in this town of Ilkley. However, so how a bid works is, and this is the second iteration, they last for 5 years and then they have to be voted to continue. So 6.5 years ago maybe, the first bid got off the ground. In order for it to get off the ground in the first place, all the businesses in the town have to be asked if they are interested to be involved in the bid. Now, interestingly enough, it would appear that if you are not a retailer in the centre of town, but you're not far from the centre of town, and you realise that most of the bid's work is going to benefit retailers and not you, you may decide that it's not for you. So you say no thank you. However, if there is a retailer or a business further away from the town centre than you who says yes, and overall the community says yes, then as it sort of it radiates out from the centre, you become incumbent, you become liable, you have to make your donation purely because a business further out of the town centre than you said yes please. And obviously there are pubs, there are restaurants and places further away than the town centre than many small businesses who aren't retailers. So by the back door, many small businesses who've made a value judgment that the bid isn't going to work for them because they realise it's for retailers, are lumbered by having to make a contribution purely by geographic location, which seems a bit strange. However, also, the sum of money that you're asked to donate or pay to the bid is commensurate with your business rates valuation. And therefore, the smaller the valuation of your business rates, the smaller you pay. They initially decided, because they wanted to support all businesses and particularly small businesses, the first iteration of the bid and the first board decided, one presumes by the constitution they drew up, that if your business was if your business valuation rates were below a certain threshold, you wouldn't be asked to donate. Now, as business valuations are changed, I think, every 5 years, quite naturally. The local authority, in this case Leeds, increased the rate valuation of businesses by inflation. Quite natural, quite normal, no worries. It therefore would not have been at all unreasonable, in actual fact mostly expected, for the bid managers and the board at the bid to raise the threshold from whence you're asked to donate, commensurate with the inflation rate rise based on the valuation. But they didn't. So kind of by the back door, they ignored and disrespected the people that the previous iteration had understood meant need some assistance and didn't really need to be part of the bid in its donation. They decided to throw that in the bin. But bearing in mind, they're saying there are about 350 businesses that are involved, and about 80 businesses in the town centre are retailers, then that means that there are obviously 3 times as many non-retailers involved that there are retailers. When asked, the managers of the bid were asked, how did you decide to change from what the previous iteration had decided to the current? They said, well, we did a straw poll. Straw poll, sorry? What do you mean straw poll? How many people were involved in this straw poll? How many of the 350 businesses that were affected by it, or the vast majority of them, how many of them did you ask? Well, about 20 or 30. Now, if you're undertaking a survey, and a genuine survey, from whence you want to get appropriate data, you know how many people you've surveyed. And if it was only 30, that is less, if my mental arithmetic is right, that's less than 8.5% of the total. So it illustrates, A, that it was a straw poll, so no one was really bothered about the small little guy who wasn't a retailer. Otherwise, bigger numbers would have been asked, surely. And of those, if 20 or 30 businesses were surveyed, which businesses were they? Were they the businesses that already donated and therefore they wouldn't make no difference to them? Was it purely a sample of the small businesses that were to be affected? No one will tell you. In allowing or facilitating the bid to be enacted in the first place, and in this case for the second iteration to be sanctioned, there had to be a poll of all those businesses. Now, apparently only about 115 or 120 businesses responded of the 350. Now that is their privilege, but it didn't matter. It was 50% of those that responded, not 50% of the businesses affected. And of course, they want a pure majority, so 51%. So you would think, well, if there are 300 businesses and they all have one representation, then 151 would mean yes, and you'd go ahead. However, it's not quite as simple as that, because if you're a big business like Tesco's, where your business valuation is much, much higher than a small 1, 2 or 3 man business, then your one vote has a much greater sway than the one vote of the other business. And interestingly enough, why, in a sense, should a business the size of Tesco's that has spends millions of pounds a year on its own promotion nationwide, and particular to its own business, why would they need the bid anyway? The money they spent is vastly greater than the bid could facilitate to assist them. And that being the case, why should they dictate to the small businesses, you must participate as well? Because effectively, if the threshold for small businesses is 7,000 and Tesco's is apparently a rateable value just over 100,000, so it would mean that 14 or 15 votes no from the small businesses would need to be undertaken or found just to counter the one vote yes from Tesco's. That doesn't seem to be unduly democratic to me, bearing in mind one's trying to do a business improvement, generally speaking, for those businesses who don't have their own resources and aren't of a size to put money aside for their own marketing, etc. The likes of Booths, the likes of Tesco's, all of which would have a big sway in the vote count, don't need it. So it does seem a little strange. But also what is particularly strange is when you look at the sums of money being expended by the BID, 20% has been expended on cleaning up the town centre. Now that is a role that we pay our rates and we pay our taxes for to Bradford. And the BID say, well, yeah, but they don't do it properly enough. Well, why should you intervene? Surely, if one of the reasons that Bradford aren't doing it properly is because they haven't got the money, if they notice that Ilkley is coming in and doing the job for them, that isn't going to stir them to say, right, we're not having that. Our pride means we'll come and do it better. That'll mean that Bradford say, well, let's not do even what we've done so far. So therefore, that'll require more money to be expended to get to a set standard in Ilkley. And also, if part of the BID is to bring businesses together and liaise them, why could you not just have ongoing working parties from the particular businesses so that they put the sweeps on the streets, basically, and it didn't cost anything other than one's time, which in most communities, giving of one's time is a very good representation of the health of the community and your desire to help your community. Also, if one looks at this document, 47 pages, is a glossy document that relates to a desire to have the second BID. Now, this document is costly to produce. If this document needed to be produced, and one can accept that a document of its ilk was required, why wasn't it not just produced online? Why was it not sent to all those businesses via email? Why was thousands of pounds spent on printing this document? Why was thousands of pounds spent on postage for this document when, to my recollection, sending an email is free? So some of the money that all the small businesses provide for the BID was utilised to print and send out a document that could have easily been emailed, done online, kept online, and emailed to you. With the greatest respect, that doesn't show massive business acumen. And also, one notices that everyone on the board of the BID are retailers. I think there are 14 people on the board. If it's meant to be representative of all the pertinent businesses in town that have to raise a levy, why are they all retailers? When, as we said, the retailers are only about 25% of the total number of businesses affected. It seems strange that 100% of the members of the board come from the retail part of the town, and there are no representatives from the majority of businesses who aren't retailers who have to make a donation. And why? Accepting what we've said at the beginning, that if it was just for retailers, fine. But why, if only 20 to 25% of the businesses that formulate the BID, why are all the policies, all the sums of money expended solely for the benefit of the retailers? Why is the cleaning only for the town centre? doesn't relate to where many of the small businesses who are subject to paying the levy are. Why is that? It doesn't appear to be morally correct. It doesn't appear to be democratically correct. It doesn't appear to be representative of all the businesses who are liable to make payment. So, when someone from the bid management sees this, we would respectfully ask you to consider every business that is subject to paying a donation to the bid, not just those retailers. As I say, do not take our comments as any negative perspective on the retailers at all. But if you're only working for the retailers, then surely you should only take money from the retailers. Thank you.